like 10 o'clock in the morning. I do. I am. I'm slowly moving, slowly moving around.
Good evening. Welcome to the January 13th Combined Vineland Board of Education meeting. Roll call, please. Mr. Merkley.
Mr. Costa. Mrs. Cadespot.
Here.
Mr. Fiocchi.
Here.
Mr. Holmes.
Here.
Mr. Rivera.
Here.
Mr. Sobrana.
Present.
Mr. Silva.
Here.
Mrs. Spinelli.
Here.
Mr. English.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. In compliance with New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law, commonly referred to as the Sunshine Law, the Vineland Board of Education has caused notice and posting of this meeting to be sent to the following, announcing time and place thereof, agenda, etc. The Daily Journal, SNJ Today, the Press of Atlantic City, Nuestra Comunidad, Visto Bueno, the Clerk for the City of Vineland, and the Administrative Office Public Bulletin Board. At this time, I ask that everyone please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States. God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For anyone that's getting any feedback or anything, Ms. Acosta is joining us on the call version of the meeting, so you might hear an echo. We do apologize for that, but she's attending through the voice call method this evening.
Mr. English, if it's okay, before we move forward, can I just make a comment regarding one of our employees? I'd just like to, with a heavy heart, let everybody know that we've lost one of our security guards to COVID. Cherie Caccaro, she worked at Wallace School, and we want her family to know that we send our deepest sympathies and we're keeping them in our thoughts and prayers. We also found out that one of our students just lost his father from the same thing. So I just ask that you all please keep these people that are suffering from this disease in your hearts and in your prayers, and I hope things improve as we move forward. I would like to ask if you would please join me in a moment of silence for Cherie. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gruccio. Do you have a resolution for executive session this evening, Mr. Merkley?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Dr. Gruccio, special presentations this evening.
Yes, our first presentation, we have Mr. Mike Garcia here from Ford Scott, and he's going to be giving the audit report.
Thank you. I am Mike Garcia from Fort Scott. I have my associate, Gene Volpe, here with me. Gene is the manager on the job that conducted the majority or all of the field work here for your audit. I'm going to let him begin with his comments, and then I will follow up with some, we'll talk about the numbers.
Thank you. Good evening. Yeah, my name is Gene Volpe. I was the audit manager on site this year for the audit. As you know, we dealt with some difficult times, and we're still dealing with them even now. So it was a difficult transition, but we were able to work closely with Gene and his staff, and fieldwork was very smooth. I'd like to thank Gene for that, first of all. I'm also going to state before I get into the AMR that there were no findings for this year's audit. So again, commending to Gene and his staff in that area. The AMR, you should have a copy of that. I'm just going to briefly go some of the areas that we did our testing on. I'm going to start on page 2. First topic at the top is the scope of the audit. We're going to go briefly through some of the sections here. First section is, I'll go down into the payroll account. Some of the areas of testing we did in there is tie in employee salaries, make sure they agree with what was approved by the board. Again, there was no areas of concern there, and all payrolls were approved by the superintendent and the board secretary, school business administrator. Again, no problems there. Continuing on to page 3, in the area of expenditures, we reviewed closely the vouchers to make sure they were approved, and also the accounts that were charged were correct. There was no discrepancies in that area. The board secretary's report were in satisfactory condition. Again, also the treasurer's report was also in satisfactory condition. Continuing on to page 4, in the area of pupil transportation, which is something that we do every year with regards to your state aid. We verified that the number of students reported on your transportation documentation is accurate. Again, we had no issues in that area. We also examined some federal and state grants, depending on the criteria. Again, there was no problems in that area as well. Continuing further down in the area of the TPAF reimbursement, we tied the reimbursements back to the district. Again, there was no issues in that area as well. Continuing on page 5 of the AMR, we also checked any bids that were approved by the board to make sure they were in accordance with the correct statutes. There was no issues there. Also in food service, with some additional meals that were approved through the summer program, we verified all the meal counts were correct and accurate, and the right amount of reimbursement was received by the district. Going on to page 6, in the area of student activities, we reviewed disbursements and receipts in that area, also verified that bank reconciliations were completed in a timely fashion and reconciled back to the general ledger. There was also no areas of discrepancies in there. And also, again, mention again the state aid, which is very important for the district. We basically do that toward the conclusion of the audit, which we would have done last year to tie in your student accounts. There was no discrepancies there. And again, thank Gene and his staff for a job well done. Again, no findings with the audit. And now I'll turn it over to Mike Garcia to go over financials. Thank you.
Thanks, Gene. In addition to the auditor's management report that all the board members have in front of you today, there was inserted a stapled set of papers that are the budgetary comparison schedules. And that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. These schedules come directly from the full report. If you remember, the full report is over 200 pages long, and so I've provided you this document tonight so you can, I think it's easier to follow along. The very first page here are the revenues for the general fund, and I've highlighted a number there for you. And that first number that I've highlighted, my glasses are fogging up a little bit here with the mask, so please excuse me, is you will see the total revenue for the district was $187,719.50, which is an increase of about $800,000 from last year, or half of 1%. As we go further into this document, when we get to the end of this document, you're going to see we're going to talk about the surplus that the district has. The district did build some surplus this year. specifically because many budget line items were unexpended due to the fact that the facilities were closed for a good portion of the year, 3 months almost. Most districts in New Jersey this year are looking at similar unexpended balances, which increases your surplus at the end of the year. So, once again, I did on the first page highlight the total revenues. The subsequent pages are just a line-by-line analysis of all of the spending. And you will see there's a final budget amount, an actual amount, and a variance. Wherever there are variances, those unexpended dollar amounts, they result in an increase in your surplus. I'm going to go now, without going through each and every page, but if we go to the bottom line for expenditures will appear on the second to last page. And you'll see I've highlighted for you the total expenditures for the district being $179,149,879.49, which is a decrease from last year. That decrease is about $14 million, which is about 8.6%. So the spending was down significantly this year because of the facilities being closed for a good portion of the year. Also on this page, you will see the number $11,085,007.87. That is the total increase in surplus. So we looked at our revenues. So our revenues were in excess of our spending by $11 million this year. Turning to the next page, I've highlighted first $15,273,874. That's the total amount of surplus that the district had at the beginning of the year. When we add that $11 million profit that we just talked about, it shows that we've ended the year with $26,358,882.80. As we do each year, that total amount of surplus fund balance is broken down into components. And the first component, you'll see right below where I've highlighted the maintenance reserve in the amount of $776.77. That money is set aside and can only be used for the maintenance of your facilities. Right below that, I have the reserve for excess surplus that I've circled in red, $13,096,114.74. As a reminder to the board and the public, the state of New Jersey currently imposes a 2% cap on surplus. When you have more than 2%, that money is set aside and must be used to fund the next year's budget. So in this case, that $13 million is in the bank, and you will need to use it to fund your next budget, which would be the 21-22 school year. You'll have that $13 million of surplus funds. Right below that, you will see the reserve for excess surplus that's designated for subsequent years' expenditures, $5,788,778.21. This is the amount that we had in excess of 2% at June 30th, 2019. Remember, this audit cuts off at June 30th, 2020. So on June 30th, 2020, that $5.7 million is still in the bank, but it's being used now to fund this current year's budget, being the 2021 school year. So as compared to last year, you've got about $7.5 million more in surplus funds going into your next budget cycle. Right below that, you have the reserve for encumbrances in the amount of $3,650,000. Just as a reminder, every year at the end of the year, there's money set aside to pay bills that relate to the prior year. The vendors don't get all their paperwork in time by June 30th to be paid. So that money is set aside at June 30th of 2020 and is ultimately dispersed against those bills in July and August. Finally, we have the unassigned fund balance in the amount of $3,822,254.72. This is the 2% amount that we talked about earlier. The state imposes currently, it's a 2% cap. That's the maximum that you are allowed to carry from one year to the next. When we add up all of those 6 components, it totals the $26,358,882.80 that we mentioned earlier. So that's how we ended the year. So we did end the year with an increase in surplus, but it is specifically attributable to the fact that budget lines were unexpended because the facilities were closed for such a large portion of the year. More likely than not, that trend of having large unexpended balances will not continue indefinitely because it really was a one-time thing related to COVID. As Gene mentioned, no findings and recommendations. He went through the areas, some of the areas that we look at in the audit. We're here for several weeks at a time doing the audit field work. There are many things that we look at, and so it's definitely a credit to the district to be able to have a clean audit with no findings or recommendations. That being said, these were the items that I wanted to cover for the board tonight, highlight those surplus numbers, the fact that there are no findings and recommendations. And then, of course, if there are any comments or questions that you have for us, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. President, I just want to make a couple comments.
Absolutely.
First and foremost, I want to thank the accounting staff of Vineland Public Schools who did an amazing job for the taxpayer and for the board. No findings is a direct attribute to them doing the job that we pay them and we hired them for. So thanks and kudos to the accounting staff of the board. Second, I want to thank Mike and his team. When he says they were here for several weeks, they were here for several weeks. And they turned over every paper a couple times. And being that Landis was really closed due to cleaning on Wednesdays, they were on site 4 days a week during the month of October and into November. And then the state pushed back the due date for the audit due to COVID. So you're getting it a little bit late now. And you're just seeing it for the first time. So I want the board to just digest it all. You're not going to have to approve the audit this evening. I'm going to put it on the February 3rd agenda. I'm going to put these documents on the Finance Committee at the end of January so we can address any questions that the board may have after Mike and Gene's presentation. So again, thank you to Mike and his team, and thanks to the employees and the accounting staff of Vineland Public Schools.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Merkley. On behalf of the board, I echo Mr. Merkley's comments. As always, it's been a professional relationship since we started doing business with you and the organization, and we thank you for your time.
I appreciate that, and once again, it's always great to be here in Vineland. Take care.
Thank you, and have a good night. Dr. Gruccio, I don't see any more special presentations. That is it for this evening?
No, at this time, we don't have any more. So I guess we can move on to approval of minutes.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for the approval of December 9th, 2020 combined meeting minutes?
So moved.
Did I get a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Acosta,
Yes.
Mrs. Codispoti,
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi,
Yes.
Mr. Holmes,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
yeah, he should abstain. Mr. Sobrana,
Yes.
Mr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli, Mr. English.
Yes,
The motion passes.
thank you. we have any public comment by our board solicitor this evening?
None for public session.
Thank you. At this time, do we have any public comment on agenda items or any other matter?
I do have yellow forms that were completed. I have Tara Meyerson and Megan Greenfield, if one of them would like to come up first.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Gruccio. Happy New Year. I'm very pleased to come up here tonight during public comment to speak about some pretty wonderful things that are happening in our district. It's a new year, and we've all been through a lot, and we're all still going through a lot. But we're here tonight to celebrate and acknowledge the positive as we move forward. So the staff in the Vineland schools have done a phenomenal job in reinventing the educational process to adapt to our new way of learning. It is not easy, and it can be overwhelming, but it's also very rewarding. And tonight I'd like to recognize just a few amazing staff members who are knocking it out of the park. I'll add that they are aware of this recognition tonight, and they have approved of us speaking on their behalfs as well. It's our hope that a staff spotlight like this can become a regular feature on the board meeting agenda, and that you'll approve our proposal to keep recognizing the amazing people who work in our district. So as I begin with these acknowledgments, I would politely ask if you'll forgive me if I go over the 5-minute limit just a smidge. First, we'd like to recognize Montana Jacobs. She's a speech therapist who services our elementary and preschool students. At Dane Barcy School, Mrs. Jacobs services students who have autism spectrum disorder. And she also has a full load of students who receive additional speech therapy in a few of our other elementary and preschools. Since virtual learning started in the spring, Mrs. Jacobs has gone above and beyond to make sure her students are still receiving speech services. She even meets with her students in the evenings if that is what works best for their families. Mrs. Jacobs has received the highest praise from many parents who still reach out to say how they are so grateful at how she was able to get their child or children talking. A particular student named Bella mentioned how she is so appreciative of all she has done for her. What's more, Mrs. Jacobs is always smiling, spreading kindness, and encourages others to do the same. Mrs. Jacobs is active in the PTA and also with fundraising efforts for the school through the Barcy Script program. She does all of this while at the same time making sure that her own 2 children who are students at Barcy attend all of their virtual meetings and get all of their assignments done. So we appreciate you, Mrs. Jacobs, for being a rock star staff member in our district. The second 2 staff members that I'm going to recognize, they come as a team. Mrs. Danielle Weir, a school counselor, and Mrs. Wendy O'Donnell, a social worker, both from Menny's, which I am a teacher at Menny's. So a staff member actually, in their own words, shared a story with us that took place pretty recently that I'd like to share. So it goes, during live virtual instruction last week, a troubling situation occurred right before my eyes in a student's home. A sweet boy in my class raised his hand. I called on him, and he then alerted me to an unfolding situation going on at home that was causing him to panic. It became very clear that this was a situation in which I needed to act fast to ensure that the child was okay. I immediately alerted our administration, our school counselor Danielle Weir, and our social worker Wendy O'Donnell. I told them something was not right. The response from them was immediate, and I knew their number 1 priority was the student and the family. While the situation was complicated, as we found out, both Mrs. Weir and Mrs. O'Donnell explained to me what I needed to know and have been following up with that student and their family ever since. I can't tell you how appreciative I was that they are such a strong team in our school and how grateful I am that they were able to help one of our wonderful Vineland families. Mrs. Weir and Mrs. O'Donnell are exemplary as educational support professionals, and their job is not an easy one as they are stretched very thin, and they help our most vulnerable students. I want them to know that they are so appreciated and valued by not only me, but by so many others. Mrs. Weir and Mrs. O'Donnell, thanks for being a strong team and keeping our children's mental health and physical safety as your top priority. And with that, thank you for allowing me to share these awesome acknowledgments with you and the public this evening. And you're going to hear from Megan Greenfield with some more recognitions. Thank you. Hi, everybody. In continuation of the staff spotlight from earlier, I'd like to proceed with acknowledging 2 more staff members who have done amazing things in their classrooms, both virtually and hybrid. Again, also respectfully ask that you forgive me if I go over 5 minutes. Anita Parent is an art teacher at Vineland High School, and she's doing amazing things with her students in creating art. Her students have adapted to virtual learning by using digital programs to learn and create art when possible. With the lack of student resources at home, Mrs. Parent has figured out a way to create lessons using minimal supplies. That can be very challenging with the subject of art. However, she's shown her students how to use the Google Drawings program for some of their lessons. There are so many benefits to this program. All students have access through Google. The best feature is that Mrs. Parent is able to see the students' work in progress and assist them in real time, which helps tremendously with student learning. She is also able to see how much time students put into their projects. Mrs. Parent plans to adapt more of her lessons to using Google Drawings this year, and some of her students' artwork will be on display on our Vineland Public Schools Facebook page for all to see. Thank you, Mrs. Parent, for being open-minded and innovative in creating unique lessons for your art students. Way to go. The final staff member that I would like to mention is Anita Bertinazi, a kindergarten teacher at Menny's School. As school began virtually for our district and then returned briefly to hybrid, Mrs. Bertinazi knew that her young students would be hesitant and nervous about coming to in-person school for the first time. She was aware that they had been learning from their homes for several months, and it may have been difficult to separate from the comfort of home and family. Keeping this in mind, she created a Words from the Heart bulletin board for her classroom, in which she requested the students' family members would write words of encouragement on a note card. The note card was posted on the bulletin board, and she would read those words to the students if they were feeling scared or sad or just needed a boost for the day. This activity creates a special home and school connection. Mrs. Bertinazi, we thank you for your special attention to your students' social and emotional needs. You are amazing. And that concludes our special recognition of several staff members in our Vineland district for tonight. But just want to thank you to the board members and Dr. Guccio for giving us this time to speak. We are looking forward to acknowledging many more of our amazing staff each month with your permission and approval of our proposal. Our communications department has agreed to also feature these staff members that we have acknowledged tonight, along with some photographs as well. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else this evening? Seeing none, we will now move to motions and resolutions by our superintendent, Dr. Gruccio.
Thank you. I would like to recommend discussion of the personnel items, retirements, resignations, terminations, leaves of absence, employment, transfers, student substitutes, extracurricular activities, and volunteers.
Do I have any questions or comments by board members?
I would like to recommend approval of the following personnel items.
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mrs. Cottasbody?
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli? Mr. English?
Yes.
That passes.
Thank you.
I would just like to take a moment to congratulate Justin Adams, who will be our new assistant principal at the high school, and I believe Mrs. DeMarchi has something to read on his behalf.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Gruccio, Central Administration, and members of the Board of Education. It is my pleasure to read Mr. Adams' speech to you this evening. He has stated the following. Unfortunately, I'm not able to attend the board meeting tonight, and I do apologize for that. I just wanted to take a moment and thank you for putting your trust and faith in me during the selection process to fill the assistant principal position at Vineland High School. Vineland has a deep pool of very talented educators to choose from, so I am humble and grateful for the opportunity that has been given to me. I am extremely excited to join the Vineland High School administration team, and I cannot wait to get started and show our team of administration, our teachers, and our school community what I have to offer. I am going to hold myself to the highest of expectations, and I will push our students and staff to do the same. I've had some great mentors along the way as a teacher, from Gail Curcio and Melissa Painter to my current administration team, Sylvia Morano and Daisy Mercado, and everyone in between. I have been able to work alongside very accomplished and experienced administrators. I hope to take pieces from each of them, add what I have to offer, and build an effective and long-withstanding tenure as an assistant principal of Vineland High School. Thank you. And I'd like to congratulate Justin Adams on joining our Vineland High School administration team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marchi, and welcome to VHS administrative staff, Mr. Adams.
Okay, moving on, I would like to recommend discussion of district travel.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the Memorandum of Understanding between the Girl Scouts of Central and Southern New Jersey and the Vineland Public Schools.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the Memorandum of Agreement between the Vineland Public Schools and the Vineland Public Charter. So provided on file with the Secretary of the Board, the purpose of this MOU is to allow Vineland Public Charter to utilize Dominic Pilla Middle School as an alternative evacuation site.
And that should say evacuation, not evaluation, correct?
Right. Evacuation.
You got it. Questions or comments?
Okay, I'd like to recommend discussion authorizing the board secretary to enter into an affiliation agreement for the 2021 school year for the placement of students for field internships, student teaching, practicum, and observations with the University of Phoenix.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend approval of items 2.1 through 2.4.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mrs. Cottasbody?
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. English?
Yes.
Those pass.
Thank you.
I would like to recommend discussion of budgetary transfers for our general school-based and ECBA budgets for November 2020.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion of the Board Secretary and Treasurer's reports for November of 2020.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the placement of special education students.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the submission of the following grant applications for the fiscal year 2021, Amended Individuals Disabilities Education Act, that is our IDA application, which includes carryover funds from the fiscal year 2020 to the State of New Jersey Department of Ed from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the submission and acceptance of the following grant, which is on file with the Board Secretary. The Power Foundation Education Initiative Grant application for Duran School and for Wallace School.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion to accept the following funding. The New Jersey Youth Corps Department of Labor and Workforce Development grant through the Vineland Public Schools, which is in the amount of $360,000.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the revised renewal premiums of 3 student accident policies with NJSIG through Biondi Insurance with total premiums of $104,170, less COVID-19 credit of $12,289.20, equaling an updated total of $91,273.80, which will be effective September 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2021.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the acceptance of the 2020 dividend release from Southern Coastal Regional Employee Benefits Fund as provided and on file with the Secretary of the Board, Jean Merkley, for the City of Vineland Board of Education, which is in the amount of $1,113,520.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the acceptable renewal of the boiler insurance with Hartford Steam through Biondi Insurance, which is effective January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, in the amount of $14,775.11.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the resolution of the Board of Ed of the City of Vineland School District in the County of Cumberland, New Jersey, authorizing the appropriate school district officials and professional advisors to prepare and submit a long-range facilities plan amendment.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the final settlement agreement and release in the matter of JH versus the City of Vineland Board of Education in accordance with the terms set forth in the settlement and release agreement, which was executed on 12/9/20 and on file with the Board Secretary.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the sales of the vehicle list, which is on file with the Board Secretary, which will be auctioned off on GovDeals.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding a resolution awarding a contract for providing natural gas supply for the County of Cumberland and the Cumberland County Cooperative Contract Purchasing System Identifier, bid number 20-87, for the time period of 1 year, which will begin on January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the 2021 Joint Transportation Agreement between Greater Egg Harbor Regional and the City of Vineland Board of Education in the amount of $1,137.94.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend discussion regarding the following Cumberland County Regional Cooperative Transportation Initiatives 2021 bid number 3.
Questions or comments?
I would like to recommend approval of finance items 4.1 through 4.15.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Mr. Merkley.
Ms. Acosta.
Yes.
Mrs. Contasvati.
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Rivera.
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli.
Yes.
Mr. English.
Yes.
Those motions pass.
Thank you, Mr. Merkley. And thank you, Dr. Griccio. At this time, we have 10B, proposed items for review or discussion or adoption by board members. At this time, we'll be turning this over to my Vice President, Ms. Spinelli, due to myself having a conflict with this situation. So at this time, I will turn 10B to you, Megan.
The chair would like to entertain a motion for the contract with the New Jersey School Board Association to assist the board in the superintendent search process. A motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Acosta.
Yes.
Mrs. Cottisbody.
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Rivera.
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
I'm going to abstain.
Noted. Ms. Spinelli.
Yes.
Mr. English.
Abstain.
Noted.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to have a presentation by our New Jersey School Board representative, Ms. Jane Kirshner, regarding the superintendent search process. Mr. Silva and myself are conflicted board members, so we will listen, but we will not be participating in this discussion.
Hello,
So
Jane Kirshner.
if anyone has any questions, just direct them towards Ms. Spinelli and Ms. Kirshner.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us, Jane?
I can barely hear you.
You can barely hear us? Well, the good thing is we can hear you, and the floor is yours, and Ms. Spinelli is taking the chair.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Happy New Year to everybody, and I thank you very much for having me as a guest. I understand that you would like some information on our superintendent search service, and I was told that this should be limited to about 15 minutes. Am I correct?
Yes.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. All
15
right.
minutes.
Okay, 15 minutes. I did, Kim was kind enough, we overnighted some promos down and got them to Kim so that she could hand them out to everybody at the meeting. So I'm assuming that you all have them. And I will speak to that, and I will try to keep my remarks very short and to the time. I am the director of the Field Services Department for New Jersey School Boards Association. I have a team of about 8 field service reps, and we cover the state. We do most of the searches. Each field service rep has their own territory. And if some of you are old enough, you may remember I have worked down there in Vineland. Our search, when I first spoke with Scott, he explained to me that a couple of you are conflicted and that he would not be able to participate in a search, and so that the board had formed a committee, and it is the committee through which I would work. I should say right out front that the conflicted board members are allowed to hear anything that the general public does. So that is why you can be hearing tonight what I'm talking about. You can read the promos, and when the committee and I meet and we set up a calendar for the search, you will be able to see that. Normally for these, we like to get some feedback from the communities, and so we do put a survey on the website. and anybody is free to go in there and answer the questions. There are about 5 questions. So anybody who is conflicted is allowed to know and talk about all the things that anybody else in the public is allowed to talk about. The committee itself will determine some of the basic criteria. They will form the ad. They will make all of the dates that are in your calendar. If you go through the pages in the promo, and I'm assuming that you have them, you will see that there is a calendar of events. The committee will come up with all of those, including interview dates, interview questions, and so on. We will put the ad on our website. We generally leave an ad up about 5 or 6 weeks. We have an online application system. It's very easy to use. We've had it in effect for about 18 months, and boards are loving it. They're able to read applications at their leisure through their computer. I will stay with this committee until you get a superintendent. It is not as though at a certain point you take over and I bow out. If you must go out again, it doesn't happen very often. It's very rare. But if you had to go out again, I'm with you for the original cost. There is no cost, no extra cost. I will be with the committee for all of the interviews. I will assist in organizing them and contacting the applicants and working with them. And I will be there to process out at the end of every round of interviews. So it's not as though the committee will not have a resource, will not have an experienced resource, and will not have somebody that they can talk to. I have met with the committee one time already, and that was to get them familiar with this process. So they have seen the papers that you have in front of you. They got them last week, and we did a little talking, and we have started, in fact, to do some of the work. I have a meeting set up with them tomorrow evening, and we are going to finish that work and get the ad going as soon as possible. It will be time intensive for them for a little bit, but they are committed to this, and actually, I think you've got a very nice team. I didn't know if there were people who had specific questions for me, or if you wanted me to continue talking. If you see in the paperwork I left, you will see the calendar that I was talking about. That is on page 6. And directly in front of that is the matrix of different search services that we offer. And you have selected to do the 12-5. That is on page 5. And you can see all of the components that I have just been talking about. They are outlined there and checked off. Those are all of the things that I will be helping you with throughout this search. I do understand that you would like to have somebody in place by July 1st, and that is the date that we are working towards. You will see in the paperwork that there are some additional advertising places that we go to. We hit every round table in the state of New Jersey, 21 of them. We make sure that the vacancy and the notice of the vacancy gets out there so that anybody who has an interest would have enough knowledge and enough time to go ahead and apply. Let's see here if there is anything else that would be of immediate concern. You will see the online placements that we do when you go through the paperwork. And I guess boards kind of like to know this, and I don't blame you really. If you look at one of the last pages, you will see all of the searches that the Field Services Department have done since 2013. through 2020 or 2020. So, I feel a little hampered and I feel a little disembodied because I can't see anybody. So I don't know if you have questions. I did not want to talk so long that you didn't have the chance to ask any questions you wanted. So I'm going to stop now and ask that if anybody has any questions to please speak up and let me know. I'll be happy to answer them.
Any of our board members have any questions, comments, concerns?
Is everybody that happy?
No, I can afflict out, so you don't have any questions.
No, See, that was my point at the beginning. We're talking about the process, and you may ask questions.
So with the process, I just want to let everyone know that Kim Cottaspati will be letting everyone, our board, know any questions they have or where things stand as far as the calendar. So if anybody has any questions, they can reach out to Kim, but she will be informing us all every meeting on what the current process is or what our current timeline
Thank you.
is.
I should also state that on the website there should be a place that is dedicated to the superintendent search. People in communities that are looking for a superintendent generally like to kind of know what's going on. When we determine the calendar, when the committee finalizes the calendar can go up on the website also. And do you all hear that echo, or is it just me?
It's just on your end. We're good here.
Okay.
Jane, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Just, so realistically, when do you estimate this process will be completed?
Well, we are shooting for having somebody in place July 1st. Now, I must let you know there are 2 lag times in a search. There is that first lag time where you need to have the vacancy out there for the 6 weeks to let it get throughout the state of New Jersey and to give people time to apply. Then there is another time at the end of the search. Since superintendent contracts have to be approved by the executive county superintendent, they like to have 6 weeks or so to look over the contract. There can be a little bit of wiggle room in that area because almost all superintendent contracts in the state of New Jersey right now are pretty much pro forma. There are a couple of things like the salary and maybe a perk that you would like to give the superintendent, so it shouldn't take that long. But in the middle, in between those 2 lag times, the committee will be doing the work of interviewing, reading all of the materials, coming up with questions, and moving forward with the search. So they would hope to have, as would I, we would hope to have a name. Well, you take it back, let's see, April and May, probably by April. So we'll be moving pretty quickly. Does that answer you?
Yes. Jane, it's Megan Spinelli. I just had one last thing. So you do feel that by July 1 we would have a new superintendent? You think that the timeline that we have in place is doable?
It is. There are a number of things that can go wrong, but not wrong. It's like generally, when we do a search, we're getting people in for July 1st. There are times when a committee or a board will go through a search and they do not think that anybody that they have seen is the best person for the job. In a case like that, I say, you cannot settle. You are committed to getting the best person for Vineland, and in a case like that, I would say we need to go out again. But we are going for July 1st.
Jane, it's Megan again. I have one last question.
Okay.
Who is involved in the process through central administration?
Throughout the search,
Yes.
nobody from central administration will be involved in the search. It will be the committee and myself.
Go ahead, John. We have one. John's going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Jane, in regard to the search, before that can move forward, obviously, criteria will need to be developed. How is that done and with whom?
The criteria will be developed as will the entire ad by the committee and me. If it is something you are concerned about, you shouldn't be, but if you wanted to, you could go on to NJSBA website and take a look at the superintendent search ads that we have up there. It is not as though an ad is all-encompassing. You are just putting together enough information in order to attract a pool of candidates. So you, I think, may be thinking that there's this long list and that there's going to be all this criteria. That is not true. But in any case, the short answer to your question is the criteria is going to be developed with the committee and me. And I've had 20 years experience in doing this. Do you have a follow-up question? Do you want to ask me more?
No, and I didn't mean that as a challenge. I was just curious about...
No,
whom...
I understand that. I didn't take it as a challenge.
Okay.
Is that all right? Do you have a follow-up question?
No.
Oh, okay, okay.
One more question coming your way.
Jane,
Sure.
this is Gene Merkley. I'm the board secretary. Would the possible number of days notice that a superintendent may have to provide to their existing school district delay them being able to start? I'm just looking at our own superintendent, and she has a 120-day clause, which is 4 months. So by the time you get through 6 weeks, by the time you get through the process of interviewing, I mean, you could have a candidate that you like April, and then you got 4 months after that. Just asking the question.
Okay, that's a great question. I can tell you nowadays, most contracts do not have 120 days. However, they do have 60 or 90. In a case like that, in the whole time I've been doing this, there was only one person who had been a principal and was going to be the superintendent of a small district. And his superintendent, while he was still a principal, refused to allow him to leave until he had run out his contract. I can tell you psychologically, once a board knows that their superintendent wants to leave, that board generally wants to get on with their own search. So I have never had a problem with superintendent being able to leave, and you are correct. It's in that last 2 months that generally they are let out. That's that time that we have the contracts going to the executive county superintendent. Now, to further answer your question, if you find somebody that you really want, and that's what we're going for, and they can't come until August, then you get an acting superintendent for 60 days.
Thank you for clarifying that for us.
Is there a follow-up to that? Because I know when a district is going for a new superintendent, there are concerns and questions and curiosities.
Jean, any further questions? No. And we do meet with Jane tomorrow through Zoom. The committee is meeting with her, so we will have an update for you shortly, and I believe Scott has one last remark.
Jane, this is not superintendent-based question, but things I have you as my New Jersey School Board rep. A couple things
Okay.
just for some housekeeping.
Okay.
As far as board goals go, I know that we need to set some board goals, but I know our main goal should be finding a new superintendent. You and I had spoke about that last year.
Yes.
Also, we need a board retreat. So I'd love to have a board retreat, but do you think this is something we should just sit tight until we get a new superintendent? Do we want to start goal setting in a retreat prior to that, or should we try and hold it off until the summer?
Well, I would think that you are probably operating on some goals right now. Right? They were either last year or they've been pulled over from last year, or they relate to the current situation in dealing with COVID.
Yes, that's pretty much what we said we were doing. You know, I just wanted to make sure that we pretty much get read into the record.
You're okay.
I'd like to have a retreat every quarter if I could, but realistically with the COVID and things, we weren't able to really get together. Maybe we could set up just a retreat virtually or something, because I know school boards are still working remotely, correct?
Yes.
So
we could have a virtual meeting. You could do ethics. We could talk about the goals if you wanted to. You can certainly have a retreat.
Okay, that's what I'll probably do, because I know I want to kick the ethics off, and then we can have a discussion just on goal settings. We do have a new board member now, so I think that would be beneficial for him, and I'll be in touch with you on that. Then I just wanted to make sure that I know we didn't get to have our retreat last year, but we had known that the situation was beyond our control. But
you are not alone. Many districts, I mean, we're really focused on, getting their youngsters educated. And I can tell you, meeting for a retreat is really good because it allows board members to not be in a super formal meeting where you have a prescribed agenda and you don't have a time to talk. So it is a nice time to kind of relax a little bit and go into some issues in depth if you want. So fine, yes, we can set one up.
Very good. I appreciate it, and I will be in contact with you concerning that. And I thank you for your time this evening, and best of luck to the committee with the search and the non-conflicted board members. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting with you.
Thank you, and have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Under 10B, or item number 2, discussion regarding virtual board meetings. I just want to reach out to, I guess I just want to have a discussion with each board member. Just want to get your feel on this, because Dr. Grucci and I set our agenda together, and I know our board meetings are board-based, so it is our decision when and how we have them. So currently we are having them on our Wednesday night. We start at 5 o'clock, and we are in person until the governor says something different. But I did want to give each board member an opportunity to express any concerns they have concerning meeting in person or the thought of being virtual. I know that we had some virtual meetings in the past, and we heard a little bit of backlash from the community concerning how can we expect anyone to attend school when board members can't even attend board meetings. So this auditorium has been set up in a fashion where we can social distance, we can handle X amount of people, and it's been working out proper. But I just want to give each board member a chance. I want to make sure that the majority of this board wants to meet in person versus virtually. So I could start to my right with Mr. Fiocchi. If you have any concerns, you let me know. If not, then we will continue to stay and we'll just go down the line, please.
My logic originally was that while students were not in school, we would go virtual. But either way, I'm fine going with whatever the rest of the board would like to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiocchi. Mr. Holmes.
Yes, I'm good with being in person.
Ms. Acosta. Ms. Acosta, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. We're just having a discussion concerning staying in person for our board meetings versus being virtual while school is not in session.
Yeah, I personally, I guess I have no problem meeting in person as long as we're observing the requirements set forth by the governor. Currently, I am quarantining, so that's why I'm not there. I'm participating via phone. So I think we have to keep an open mind because there may be times when other members may not be able to attend in person, and having the virtual option certainly is good. So either way, whatever the majority decides, I am fine with.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Acosta. Ms. Cataspati.
I'm happy with staying happy with staying in person. I understand that if things change and we have to go back to virtual, I'd be okay with that. But I think Dr. Gruccio and her staff and team have done everything to make sure the guidelines are being followed. So I would like to stay in person as long as possible, but should we have to go virtual, that would be okay.
Thank you. Mr. Silva.
In person works for me.
Thank you. Mr. Sobrana.
I prefer in person as long as it's permitted and safe.
Mr. Rivera.
I would like to echo just like the rest of the board members that agree that in person, in my opinion, is working out as long as all the protocols are being taken.
Thank you. Ms. Spinelli.
I'm fine with remaining in person.
Dr. Gruccio, would you like to share any thoughts?
No, just that as long as we're following the protocol we have been following to ensure the safety of those that work in the building and the board, I'm fine with meeting in person, but I think it's important that we follow the protocol.
Thank you. Everyone knows how I feel, so I think at this time we will continue meeting in person, and if indeed we get a change from the governor, of course we will be observing what he puts out there. So it will be business as usual in person, and thank you for this discussion. At this time, do I have a motion for the approval of bills that incurred for the month of November 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Acosta.
Yes.
Mrs. Cataspati.
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Rivera.
Yes.
Mr. Sobrana.
Yes.
Mr. Silva. Ms. Spinelli.
Yes.
Mr. English.
Yes.
That passes.
Thank you. Number 12, we have no emergent items with prior approval. Number 13/14, we have old/new business. Do we have any old or new business from any board members? Seeing none, I just want to touch on some new business here. 2020-21 Vineland Board of Education committees and assignments. I had sent an email out. Hopefully everybody got a chance to review it. I gave each one a hard copy just to review. Spoke with my Vice President, Meg Spinelli, over the weekend, and we combed through. We switched some things around. The key thing for these committees, I'm pretty confident in the chairs that have been chairing each one of the committees. It's been working that way. The way our board committees work, they're very transparent. We have our minutes posted. Everyone's aware of that. The key thing is I'd like to get Mr. Rivera pretty much brought up to speed as fast as we can. He's going to be sitting on our finance committee, which is really what drives the bus here. So it's a committee that can be a little bit overwhelming, but I also have him sitting on the transportation committee as well. But I explained to him yesterday on the phone that if indeed he would like to sit in on any committee, just feel free to contact the chair, and he can copy me, however he would like to do it. That way he can get a feel of each one, as we do with any board member that's interested in sitting in on a certain committee, if they have anything they would like added to a piece of an agenda. I sit on the committees as ex officio. I did speak with Ms. Spinelli concerning maybe if she wants to sit in on some as ex officio, we can alternate things like that so she can get the flavor of each committee as well. So realistically, just so the public knows, we have our finance committee. Our chair would be Mr. Fiocchi, Mr. Holmes will be sitting on that, and Mr. Rivera. Our facilities committee will be chaired by Ms. Spinelli. Mr. Fiocchi will be sitting on that, and Mr. Holmes as well. We have our policy and personnel committee. It will be chaired by Meg Spinelli. Sitting on the committee will be Ms. Cottaspati and Mr. Fiocchi. Curriculum, instruction, and technology. Once again, will be chaired by Inez Acosta. We'll have Mr. Silva sitting on that, and we will have Mr. Sobrana sitting on that as well. Transportation will be chaired again by Mr. Holmes. Ms. Acosta will be sitting on that, Mr. Rivera, as well as I stated earlier. We have a couple of ad hoc committees which are still working committees as of this meeting. We have the ad hoc security and safety committee. Last year, Mr. Ulrich had sat on that. What I did there was I have Mr. Fiocchi now chairing that committee. Ms. Cottaspati will be on that committee along with Mr. Silva. We have the ad hoc communication committee, which consists of Mr. Sobrana chairing, Mr. Silva, and Ms. Acosta on that as well. We have our preschool liaison. Ms. Cottaspati continues to volunteer to do that, unless anybody else wanted to relieve her of that duty, which I don't see any hands being raised. So once again, congratulations on being the preschool liaison. We do have our HIB appeal team. I've been on the board for a long time, and I think I've sat in maybe on 3 or 4 HIB appeals totally. Usually I like to assign 3 board members to that, but it's really a case-by-case thing. If any board member is interested and would like to sit on that team, just let me know. But if not, if that case is coming up, I will just reach really out, say, hey, we have this, and the first 3 that respond can sit in on that. Then we can alternate it accordingly. That way everyone gets a... We don't really want to have many HIB appeals, so at that point, I like the fact that I haven't had many of them in 10 years. So 3 members will be sitting on that. A board delegate. As I stated in the online there, currently a board delegate has to meet twice a year. I think a Saturday in May and a Saturday in November. And subject with this COVID happening, it's been virtual. But it is good to have representation from a board member. I always look to see if I have a volunteer for that. Ms. Cottaspati did reach out and say she was interested, but again, she's pretty busy with other things. But if indeed no one is interested in that, I would be asking Ms. Cottaspati to sit in on that as well. So not sure if we have any interested delegate. I don't need to know tonight, but if you're interested, please let me know on that. We have our VEA negotiating team, which is chaired by Kim Cottaspati, Ms. Spinelli, and Cedric Holmes are on that. And then we have our superintendent search committee, which consists of Chair Ms. Cottaspati, Ms. Acosta, Ms. Spinelli, and Mr. Holmes. Again, as Vineland Board of Education President, I sit in on each committee as the ex officio, but will gladly step out if anyone would like to get in on any of those meetings. Additional ad hoc committees, when needed, will be formed as per our bylaws state. So if indeed a board member brings something to my attention and it's something that cannot be addressed through a certain committee, we will gladly break out and have a ad hoc committee that can hone in on just that particular topic and chop it down accordingly in as many meetings that it would take to get a resolution resolved accordingly. And then I have something on the bottom here that is something new for the district. I put on here, superintendent or school district-based committees are not board-initiated and not picked by the Vineland Board of Education. They will not be posted on this page. I realize we now have an equity committee, and we also had a reopening committee, but again, that's something that is school district-based. I have no control over who sits on that. That's something that the superintendent takes care of, and we have discussion back and forth, and but that is something that if Dr. Gruccio decides to put something on the website, that it would be her decision, not something that is board generated. So if anyone has any questions, I will entertain answering them now. If not, again, I look forward to a productive year of committee discussion. We did try something new, a lot of the virtual meetings, which to me were extremely successful. If indeed everyone is in favor of going that way, if you choose to meet in person, I have no problem with that either. But if you are comfortable using the Zoom style, we can continue to do that. And whatever the chairs want to decide there, I mean, you guys discuss that as chairs and just let Dr. Gruccio, myself, or the certain part in the district department know how you want to move forward with that. And then the key thing is just to get your minutes in a timely fashion. Just make sure that they get to someone that can get them on the website. I know in the past I have assumed when I had chaired a committee that they just went on there, and sometimes it wouldn't happen in that fashion, and then I would get a call from the local newspapers saying, hey, was there discussion at X, Y, or Z? And I said, yes, check the website. And she says, of course, I checked the website, and we found that it wasn't there. So if indeed you guys can get that on there in a timely fashion, I do appreciate that. So do I have any questions? Any questions left or right? No? Again, okay, thank you on that. At this time, I have board member remarks. I will start to my left with Mr. Rivera, please.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to send my condolences to the Caccaro and Scarpa family on the loss of their loved one. I was glad to hear that Ms. Kirshner from the superintendent search, that this process is going to be open to the public, or they want the public involved. I think it is important that the public is involved because this person, whoever he or she may be, will ultimately work for the public as well. I want to encourage parents, I want to encourage students to go onto that website when it is up and running and answer that survey, answer the questions on that survey. Quiero animar al público que vaya y nos denos las opiniones que ustedes quieren en busca de un superintendente. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that this process is getting started, and I can't wait. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Mr. Sobrano.
Nothing else for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Sobrano. Mr. Silva.
Yes, my deepest sympathies to the Caccaro family. I would like to also thank, I think it was Ms. Mortelli, Ms. Greenfield for showcasing teachers. I would like to see more of that. I don't know if we could put something on the website where we can showcase possibly teacher heroes and have the community vote on what their teachers are doing with their students. Very excited about the superintendent search, even though I can't participate, but I am excited to find someone. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. Ms. Cadaspati.
Yes, first I'd like to send my sympathies to the Caccaro and the Scarpa family, and to the family of our student who just recently lost his father, and to anybody that's been affected by COVID. To our accounting staff, thank you for the hard and unrecognized work that you guys do for us day in and day out, as well as the rest of our staff. For the teachers that were recognized a little earlier, thank you for everything that you do. And I'd like to thank all of our staff and teachers for going above and beyond. and doing what they're doing for our students. With regard to the superintendent search, I have a great team working with me. I'm looking forward to doing this. We have to remember that this is an investment in our students, our district, and our community. So we're going to, do the best that we possibly can. The survey will be up on the site as soon as we finish meeting this weekend, hopefully. Answer the questions, and we're going to take it from there. I'd like to say God bless you all, and please stay safe.
Thank you, Ms. Cadaspati. Ms. Acosta.
I just want to echo my fellow board members' expression of sympathies to the families that have suffered such a great loss. I'd want to take a moment again to thank all of our administrators, our wonderful teachers, and our students for showing such perseverance during these difficult times. I know that working together, we can all find comfort and be a source of encouragement. So again, thank you, and God bless you all.
Ms. Acosta, continue to stay healthy with your family as well. Our thoughts and prayers are with you during this trying time, and thank you. Mr. Holmes.
Thank you.
None at this time.
Mr. Fiocchi.
Nothing at this time.
Ms. Spinelli.
I just want to send my sympathy to everyone that is battling the COVID-19 pandemic. It affects everyone so differently, and just really try to be safe out there. I also want to commend the accounting department in a error-free audit. I think this is our second or third year that they have told us that great news. So job well done, and everyone have a good night, and I look forward to 2021.
Thank you, Ms. Spinelli. Dr. Gruccio.
Thank you. I just again would like to take a moment to extend my deepest sympathy to all of those who have lost a loved one due to this dreadful disease. I would also like to take a moment to thank Donors Choose. They have given us equipment before, and again, they have given more equipment to Mr. Nader's classroom. It's a variety of tripods, microphones, and recording equipment for his classroom. I would also like to thank Mr. Merkley and Mr. Mostrell and their entire accounting staff for the work that they do. We're very pleased with the audit, and I thank you for all your hard work. And finally, I just want to welcome Justin Adams. He is a teacher right now at our one of our elementary schools. He'll be moving as a vice principal at the high school, and I wish him nothing but the very best. So I thank you all. Have a good night, and God bless.
Thank you, Dr. Gruccio. It is too with a heavy heart that I extend my condolences to the Caccaro Scarpa family with the passing of Cherie. Dedicated employee. As I read things on Facebook and talked to different people throughout Vineland, things like this kind of put it all in perspective. You really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So again, as Dr. Gruccio says often, really embrace your loved ones and let them know how you feel. My thoughts go out to the student who lost his parent as well. That is tough for any student, and I extend a heartfelt sympathy to him and his family. To the families that are continuing to battle day in and day out with this whole pandemic. Hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel. We hear about vaccines, we hear about everything. Just continue to plow through it and have faith that better days are ahead. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Adams again, wish him best of luck as he starts a new endeavor at the high school. To Mr. Merkley, Mr. Mustarell, the accounting staff, congratulations on a clean audit, and that's what we pay you guys to do, and it's good to see that the job's getting done. I thank you guys for that. I thank Ford Scott as well for putting the time in. And then lastly, the word maybe is to showcase our staff. The two young ladies spoke this evening eloquently about what the teachers are doing, and it's very hard just to pinpoint one person, one school, one leader. We know everyone is doing the best that they can do during these trying times. I know none of us are happy with the way things are going, but we are continuing to move forward and educate students the best that we can. Yes, all of us as board members would love kids in 5 days a week, and I think that's going to be down the road sometime, for sure. But it's day by day. Dr. Gruccio continues to pound the pavement with the other county superintendents and our county superintendent, and she continues to fight for the city of Vineland to do what's the safest and best for all. Yes, it's not a popular decision a lot of the time, but I can tell you that she is putting the time in to make sure that when these students get back, when that date is, that it will be the best that we have to offer. As far as showcasing staff members, Mr. Holmes had a transportation meeting maybe about a month ago, and it came up in, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Holmes, but it came up in your meeting about the job that our transportation department is doing, from bus drivers to registration to secretaries to Mr. Hall to Ms. Ferrari as well. And we had discussion concerning, honoring people. But then we got to it, and when it's a pandemic like this, yes, it's great to honor one, but it's so easy to forget someone as well. And in this big town of Vineland, Dr. Gruccio, you could tell, they always remember the person you didn't say. They never seem to really remember the one you did. So we've had discussion on different ways that departments will be getting together to acknowledge staff members, and we will continue to work with that. As far as the VA, they had a nice idea to honor some of their staff members monthly at the meetings, and what we have asked as a board, Ms. Spinelli and myself, at our agenda setting, Dr. Gruccio had spoken as well, we just want to see a proposal on what the criteria is and things like that, because, again, we don't want to get in a situation, it's tense enough with this pandemic. We don't want feelings getting hurt, and why not me or why not this one? So, again, as the lady said tonight, we want to promote the positives, but the positive spin that I like to leave us with this evening is everyone is doing a remarkable job, and the best job that he or she can do to make sure our kids are continuing to get to school safely, get home safely, to learn virtually, to learn in the classroom, be it a smaller classroom, to get educated, to have the extracurricular activities, the sports. We're trying to put together the best package that you can possibly put in for a district our size with 10,000 plus students. So, again, we get the emails as board members, and I challenge anyone to sit in these seats and try and make the decisions that we're making, because it is not an easy time right now. And yes, we look at Ocean Cities, we look at Washington Townships, we look at other districts, but currently I'm the president of the Vineland Board of Education. We are board members of the Vineland Board of Education. So we need to focus on what we are doing and continue to move forward as we go through this pandemic. With that being said, I thank each one of my board members. I look forward to working with each of you this coming year, and I ask for a motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
All in favor? Thank you and good night.